I want to thank you all for showing up and joining me here on the mat and participating in this shared space. From near and far, I'm hoping to connect with a lot of people who aren't able to come to my classes or aren't able to maybe even take the time to go out and take a class in their community. So this is a home practice for anyone, for beginners, for more advanced practitioners. This is for all of us. You really should just keep in mind that this practice is for you and nobody else, and to take it slow and to take it softly on your body, to push where you feel like you could push harder, and to soften and be more graceful where your body requires that as well. And I think for today, this practice is going to really focus on surrendering. So a lot of forward folds and some deep hip work and a lot of bowing down to those things that we cannot control in our lives. They are seemingly endless, and the older we get, at least for me, the more I am learning to surrender, because there is a lot that we are in charge of, a lot of control that we can take, but there are some things, especially when living abroad and traveling and building a freelance career, that there is so much we simply have to bow down to and just let things exist the way they are and fold and unfold the way they are. So for me, this practice has been incredibly beneficial because my life is full of challenges right now. Beautiful moments, but a lot of challenges. And something I want to be practicing more of is bowing down and being humble and grateful for the moments that feel out of my control and feel frustrating. Because I don't want to resist what's supposed to happen, and I don't want to resist things that are inevitable. So we come to the mat. It seems like this is such a safe place for us to come together and to simply let go. So before we start every practice, I really enjoy setting the space. So that could involve some incense lighting, whether it's copal, palo santo, or just a fragrant incense that you love. I always like to incorporate a little essential oil, so putting that on my wrists, the back of my neck, and taking a few deep breaths with the oil. And then I'll put like a yoga mat spray on my mat before I begin, just so I have a fresh mat to work with, to work on. Today I'm going to show you guys an alternate breathing exercise called Nadi Sodhana. It's a very purifying pranayama breath, and we start by taking the thumb and the fourth finger, and we can either rest our elbow on the top of our knee if we want to bring our leg up for a little bit more support, or you can do this just sitting in your seated position. And starting with a breath out of the left nostril, so we close the right nostril with the thumb, take an exhale through the left, pause at the bottom of the breath, take a deep inhale in. The top of the breath, we switch nostrils, exhale through the right, pausing at the bottom of the breath, take an inhale through the right, pausing at the top, switching fingers, exhale through the left nostril, pausing at the bottom of the breath, take a big inhale through the left nostril, pausing at the top of the breath. Exhale through the right. Inhale through the right. Pausing at the top. You can take a few self-directed breaths on your own. When you're ready to release this pranayamic breath, you can come back to seated position if you're not already there, and one hand over your heart and the other on your stomach. Really connect to the breath that we've engaged with, that we've acknowledged, maybe for the first time today, maybe for the first time this week. Feeling the belly fill up on the inhale, feeling it wash out through the belly, up through the chest on the exhale. We feel the power that our breath holds. And we feel its entirety washing through us like a wave, like the ocean herself. With our hands resting on our knees, we can start with a few relaxing neck rolls, tracing each corner of the room with our chin, and gently circling from side to side and in full circles, looking up at the ceiling, rolling our neck down towards the ground, keeping our eyes open or fluttering our eyes closed, and doing this with absolute connection to the breath. With a few shoulder rolls up to the ears and back down the shoulder blades, we find length in our neck and our spine. We root through our sit bones and elongate through the spine, ensuring there's nice space between the ears and the shoulders, and avoiding that hunching or that pulling up of the shoulders. And this is a practice we want to take throughout the entire flow today. So we're always connected to our posture, no matter if we're upside down or in a forward fold or in warrior two. We always want to be acting with length in our spine, shoulders pulled down, and a soft gaze. Now we'll do some side stretches by planting the right hand onto the floor next to you with a bend in the elbow, leaning with the left arm, finding length in that side body, and switching sides when you're ready. The gaze can be at the ground or up towards the ceiling, leaving space in between the shoulder and the ear, so the shoulder isn't the shoulder isn't collapsing or folding too deeply against the head. You always want to keep space between this area if you can, if it's comfortable. On a big breath in, we raise our arms up ahead. Our hands come to prayer at our chest. On an poise again. Inhale, hands come to chest. Exhale, filling up our lungs as we pull some energy from our surroundings into our space. Hands to heart. And now we'll do a seated cat-cow, where we bring our chest forward, opening up that heart space, and then rolling back, bringing our belly button to our spine, and rounding the spine as we go back to the back of the room. And then our chest comes forward, opening space in that center of the body, in the heart area, and in the hips. We bow down to ourselves, to the teacher within us, to the teacher before us. And together we will Om. On an inhale, take a deep breath in. And on an exhale, making the Om sound. Now when we're ready, we're going to get onto all fours, and with our feet engaged and our balls of our feet grounding into the earth, we will start with a child's pose. Our knees wide, our hands up ahead of us, finding length in the back and in the neck. And if you can, reach your forehead down to the ground, finding support in the neck. Moving forward, we're going to start with cat-cow, scooping the belly down below, letting our hips turn up towards the sky. We look up, and then on an inhale, we round the spine, looking down towards the earth. And take this a few times on your own, seeing where you can find more space in the back, in the hips, and in the chest. Keep the feet engaged. We want to activate the body in the beginning of the practice so we don't get sleepy. And try to smile here, lifting the corners of your mouth. When you're ready, we're going to lead with our chest, and we're going to make circles, scooping our belly and then rounding the upper back and trying to isolate this part of the body. So our chest dips, our back kind of reaches up towards the sky as we make a circular movement. And then we isolate the hips, scooping the lower back with the tailbone. And then our pelvis reaches down towards the ground, trying to isolate this part of the body, finding more movement in the hips while activating the spine and finding fluidity in our own bodies. This will look different for everybody, and that is perfect. Now coming onto all fours with our knees bent, we're going to make our way into our first downward dog with bent knees. So right now we want to focus on making our spine as straight as possible. So once we are comfortable with our hands supported below, our creases of our wrists facing forward, we can drop our head and feel our hips raise above us, keeping the knees bent as much as you need. And when you're ready, starting to stretch out the legs, bending one knee at a time, activating the backs of those legs that get neglected often, but are so important to our strength and stability and our balance. Coming to the tips of our toes, and then we release into our first expression of downward dog. I like to give myself a little extra stretch here by crossing one foot over the other, so the toes line up on the mat. The leg that's in the front can be bent slightly. The leg that's wrapped around the back can be straight or bent, whatever your body needs. And it gets a deeper stretch in that bent leg. So our downward dogs can be created in an even more full expression throughout the practice. It's all about making space. Coming back to downward facing dog, taking a deep breath in and a deep breath out, connecting to that full belly breath, feeling it wash through us, letting the breath be our guide through this practice. We come to our knees and we move into a child's pose, pulling the crease of our hips back a little bit so our bottom is touching the tops of our heels, and we find length through our arms, through the spine, and reaching our forehead down to the earth. This is going to open up our hips for practice today, opening up those emotional channels that we have, and creating length in the spine, in the shoulders, in the arms. Coming into downward facing dog, we can stretch our legs out here and then lift the right leg high, keeping that left foot grounded to the floor. We bend the right leg, reaching up to our right elbow, pausing for a slight moment, then reaching back into downward dog, bending the knee and turning to the left elbow for a twist. Back to downward dog. On this last one, we'll bend our knee forward and we'll tap our nose to our knee if we can. Finding length in downward dog, bending the knee, opening the hip, making a few small circles, and stretching deep into downward dog before switching legs. Now we're on the left side of the body, opening up, reaching that foot high, flexing those toes. We bend the left knee into the left elbow, bending back to downward dog. You know the next. Taking our left knee to our right elbow, feeling that twist. Reaching back into downward dog, flexing the toes, finding so much length from our fingers to our toes. We reach with our left knee to our nose. And then back into downward dog, finding some opening in the hip there with some circles with the knee bent. And then stretching out the backs of our legs in downward dog, doing what your body needs. Here we come into dolphin pose. We have our forearms on the ground, clasping our hands together, and we walk our feet in as close to the body as we can. This will prepare us for a posture later on in practice. And then coming down to our knees, we find child's pose, or we can bring our arms and our hands down to the side of us, resting our forehead on the earth below, finding a moment of quiet here. Reaching our hands overhead, we look up, we smile, and we find grounded support in our hands and our palms, and then we stretch back to downward dog. Walking our hands in towards our feet. I like to put 2 fists between my feet and keep that as my stance for the beginning of practice. We look up, and then we fold in nose to knees, and doing this a few times at your own pace. With hands and fingertips on the floor, we glance up towards the wall in front of us, or the sky, or whatever's in front of us at the moment. And then we come back down to a forward fold, clasping our elbows and moving side to side in the hips. When you're ready, come to standing pose. Bring your arms up overhead, hands to heart, and find your breath in this standing pose, our first posture with our feet on the ground and our hands high above us. Now we swan dive with our palms together, fingertips root to the ground, glancing up and folding forward, knees to nose. With our peace sign fingers, we grasp in between our big toe, glancing up with straight arms, and then bending the elbows and reaching the forehead to the back of the room. We find length here from the hips. Take that as deep as you want. When you're ready, you can glance halfway up, folding forward, arms rise above, hands to heart center. Take a breath in. On an exhale, we bring our arms up overhead, and in the same breath, we come all the way down to the ground, reclasping those big toes, straight elbows as we glance up, and then pulling our elbows wide, reaching our forehead towards the earth. We find even more length. Glance halfway up, step the feet wide for a wide-legged forward fold. We kind of bring our toes in just a little bit, so we're slightly pigeon-toed. Adjust your stance as needed. hands come out in front of the face. You can take them a little further if you feel comfortable. Glancing halfway up with a long spine, and then releasing with the crease of our hips, pulling back so we're not falling forward, but instead pulling our hips to the back of the room while we clasp our elbows and reach for the earth beneath us. So we're doing a folded twist. That top arm can either come high above or reach over to the opposite hip. This is a really deep stretch, really wonderful for the backs of the legs, for the side body, and for the arms. Coming back to center, we'll do that on the opposite side, making sure we're breathing through the twisted posture. Taking a deeper twist if our bodies are asking for it, by wrapping that top arm over the hip and looking up towards the sky. Release this posture slowly, gracefully, coming back down to the center and glancing up, creating length in that spine, and then reaching our forehead down towards the earth, seeing if we can bring our face a little closer to the mat. Clasping our arms behind us, we're going to offer a little extra stretch by letting our palms fall above us, creating more space in this chest area, and taking a few breaths here as we surrender, always surrendering, even when it's so hard and seems ironic. This is the secret, surrender. Now we rise and we come into a wide-legged pose, goddess pose, with our feet pointed to the sides of the rooms. We find stability in our calves, in our hamstrings, and with our arms overhead, we sink a little lower. Our gaze can be in front of us, it can be up at the sky, and with a few breaths in and out, we're going to lift with the legs, arms rise, and then we're going to sink a little deeper when we come back down to bent knees. Take this goddess pose as you please, what feels right for you. Take it slow. You can make the movement a little faster, but focusing on tucking the tailbone and reaching towards the earth. Making sure our knees aren't collapsing in. And then we can release this posture, come back to standing. Arms rise above. Swan dive forward, fingers on the floor, glancing halfway up. Forward folds. We can grab the backs of our legs and pull ourselves a bit closer so our forward fold deepens with each movement. Glancing halfway up, forward fold, and then we rise. Hands to heart center, Scooping the arms wide, hands to heart. One more big sweep of the hands, looking up ahead, swan dive forward. Glance halfway up. And then we're going to bring our left foot forward. Our back foot is grounded into the earth at a 90-degree angle, going towards the right corner of the mat. We're going to bring our hips facing that forward foot. We can give ourselves a little guidance here by holding onto the creases of our hips as we bow forward, ensuring that we're not twisting too far to the left side and not too far to the right side, just exactly where our hips are. We follow the angle of our hips, and we come up, glancing halfway up after we step that foot forward. Left foot back. We repeat this on the left side, grounding our left foot down so it's parallel to the right foot, guiding our hips forward and bending from the hips, wherever that may be, as long as we're operating from the angle of where our hips are naturally. Bringing the nose to the knee, taking a breath in, reaching a little farther forward, and we step our feet together, glancing up, and then forward fold in. And we rise with arms wide, and we do a little side bend here. The hips jet to the left side as our arms scoop up and over, keeping a lot of strength and support in our legs, and making sure to keep the belly button pulled into the spine. And we switch sides. When we're ready, we can do a micro back bend by moving the hips towards the front of the room and sending our arms back behind us, looking up towards the ceiling. We come back to a few side bends, leading with our hips. And we find our posture here. Throat back towards the neck, shoulders down, belly button pulled in towards the spine. And then we take a breath down and we find our first chaturanga. You can jump into this, but always make sure you jump with bent elbows, moving straight into upward dog. Or you can take this slow and bend using your knees, and we'll all meet in downward facing dog. With our right leg rising, bending forward, we step that right foot forward, making our way into warrior two, grounding the left foot back, breathing into that bent front knee. Our hips open to the back of the room, our arms wide. We reach forward and then ease back into exalted warrior. With a breath out, we come into supported side angle with our right elbow on our right knee, stretching that left arm overhead. Coming back into warrior two, we rotate our arms to the ground and our legs meet together back in downward facing dog. Left foot rises. Take a breath here. Left foot comes in between hands. We rotate the right foot down, bending into the left leg, into the left knee. Hands rise, hips face forward. Our back foot is parallel to the front foot, heel to arch alignment. I'm going to practice this one again. So We have heel to arch alignment, and then we rise with our hips out to the side. I'm always perfecting this posture. For me, it's not as intuitive. But once we find our security here, our alignment, we can bend deeper into the left arm, and then reaching that arm back, really pressing into the front knee, exalted warrior, looking up at the ceiling, coming out of the posture, breathing into supported side angle, left elbow on left knee, glancing up towards the ceiling, and then we rise back into warrior two, hands come down, planted to the earth, stepping into downward facing dog. Meeting our hands to our feet, however you want to do that. We will meet in forward fold and take a few forward folds here, glancing halfway up and then bending deeper into the hips, down towards the ground. And then we rise. We can take a small back bend here if our body calls for it. Only taking it as far as you feel comfortable. Our arms rise, gathering the space around us. Swan dive forward, fingers to the earth, glancing halfway up. Forward folds. Hands root beneath us, jumping into upward facing dog. Finding the strength in our legs so they're not touching the earth, rather floating just above, bringing our throat back, our neck pulls to the back of the room, and when we're ready, we shift into downward facing dog as smoothly and as fluidly as we can. Bending our knees, looking towards the top of our mat, we jump forward. Our hands meet our feet, glancing forward, forward folds, bringing our arms up overhead, finding the groundedness in our breath as we move through practice. And take a few small side bends here. Our hands lift above us, glancing ahead, and then we swan dive forward for our continued series of forward folds. Once we come back down, we jump into upward facing dog through chaturanga, always bending your elbows to get here. And then you can straighten the elbows, taking a breath in, and then releasing into downward facing dog, where our left leg rises, meets us at the front of the mat, and we move into warrior two, reaching forward, reaching back into exalted warrior. We can wrap that hand around the opposite hip. Supported side angle. We take a breath here. If we feel like lowering the hand to the ground on the inside of the leg for a deeper stretch, please do this now. We're moving closer to a bind through this repetition, taking it further each time. Moving back into warrior two, and then we set our palms to the ground, coming back to downward dog. And we lift with the left leg rising high, chest brings it closer to the ground, and we step forward with the left leg between the palms, rooting that back foot, hips to the side of the room, arms wide, looking forward. We reach, and then we bring our arm back into exalted warrior, where our hips move forward. On an exhale, we come into side angle. If we want, we can bring that bottom arm all the way down to the ground, finding a deeper stretch and a little extra support in the arms. Glancing up towards the sky, we breathe in, and then we swing our arms down, rooting into the earth, coming back to downward dog. That left leg rises, stretches out, and we come back into downward dog. Bending into our knees, looking forward, jumping up towards the front of our mat, glancing up for halfway, coming back to forward folds, And then we rise with a flat back, arms rise above, taking us into a back bend, feeling a little bit extra flexibility here. Arms come down, rising up again, moving fluidly with a flat back down to the earth. We plant our fingers, rise halfway, forward folds, knee to nose, glancing up one more time, forward folds, planting our feet behind us, chaturanga to upward facing dog, where we find even more flexibility in the lower back. Our shoulders pull back, our chest is forward and open. And then we move fluidly into downward facing dog. Right leg rises, bending forward, then we plant the right foot between the hands, rising into warrior two. Now we're going to take this into a bind. So we do, instead of supported side angle, we reach that lower arm through the back leg, taking our left arm over the back of us and finding that hand. So we're in a little bit of a pretzel, and we try to find our breath in this twisted bound position. Planting that lower arm onto the ground, we come back to warrior two, swinging the arms open, coming down to downward facing dog. Switching sides, left leg rises, bending forward, we bring that to meet our hands at the front, We rise to warrior two, bending deeper into that front leg. Hips face the side of the room, arms go wide, and we reach down with the left arm, scooping our shoulder under our knee, finding ourselves in a bind. If we can bring that right arm to the back of us and finding that hand, we clasp our hands and we find our breath in this twisted position, looking up towards the ceiling, and then our top arm rises, bottom arm plants beneath us, coming to the front of our mat, stepping back into downward facing dog, stretching out that left leg. And take a few soft breaths here, and then jumping forward to come to the top of our mat, we glance halfway up, forward folds, glancing up, folding again, always leading with the breath. We rise with a flat back, arms up overhead, giving ourselves a nice stretch here. Flat back, forward folds, glancing up, finding length through the spine even more, feeling all the space we've created so far. We take our feet together with our big toes touching, and then we swing our arms down below us, our fingertips sweeping the ground, and we go to chair pose, our chest forward, our butt out. Yes, our butts could be out, and our hands overhead. We move into this a few more times, bending a little bit deeper, sitting a little further back, each movement, as if we were about to sit down in a chair, but not completely. Then we forward fold, glancing up, coming to a supported position with our fingertips beneath us. We raise the right leg for a standing split. Our knee comes to our nose and our leg raises up to the sky behind us. Then we bend into the back leg. If we can, we reach for that foot with our hands still supported on the ground, and we find length here with our foot pulling one way and our hand pulling it the other. We find balance in this opposition. Releasing the posture, coming to our fingertips, we find length in a standing split once again. Bending into that floating leg, we come to the ground, meeting our hands with our feet and switching sides. Our left leg rises, our knee gets closer to our knee, our hands are supporting us, that right leg is strong and steady, and we bend into the left leg, reaching with the left arm, finding one spot on the ground to keep our focus. And again, find balance in this shaky, often challenging standing pose. Releasing the posture, we walk our hands closer to our leg for a standing split, reaching that back leg high, and then meeting that leg down to the other. With our hands supporting us and our feet spread wide, we come down into a yogi squat. So bringing our hands to our chest, trying to root our sit bones down to the ground beneath us. With a straight spine, with a soft gaze, we try to find a little bit of balance here, a little bit of relaxation. When we're ready, release the posture, coming to the tips of our fingers for a forward fold. Knees to nose, nose to knees. And then we rise, hands float above us. We make our way into a micro back bend, reaching even further than before, grounding our feet into the earth, letting them be our anchor for these standing poses. Stretching out our hips, we can open the side of the body with one foot pointing towards the wall, one foot pointing forward. And then we're going to make our way into triangle pose. So the same setup as warrior 3 with our feet, heel to arch alignment, and then we reach our left arm down beneath us and we find support in our feet and in that hand that's grounding down. Straight legs, strong legs. And then our hands face forward, our toes face forward. I like to take a runner's posture when I do my twisted triangle. So that back foot comes up to the ball of the foot, and then we open to the left side of the room with that hand high above us. We release this posture, coming into standing split. And then when we come back down, we keep our feet in warrior 2 on the opposite side, grounding the right arm beneath us. Our left arm rises, can bend far back behind us to give us even more of a stretch. And then we rotate to twisted triangle. You can move to the ball of the right foot if you need it, opening to the opposite side, and trying to find our breath in this twisted posture. Releasing, we bring both feet to the center, and then we let the right leg rise above as we bring our knee to our nose in standing split. Release. Bring your feet to the back of the mat, and we meet in downward facing dog. Feeling all this energy moving through us, engaging with it, saying, thank you, I see you, I feel you. We move into a restorative child's pose, grounding our hips down to the earth, our arms outstretched in front of us, and our forehead comes gently to the mat. Releasing this posture, coming up to a kneeled position. And then we're going to set up for headstand. So the most important thing about a headstand is using our shoulders and our forearms and not our head. We clasp our hands together so we make a little support for our head. And we want to be on a little bit of between the crown and the forehead. And then we start to walk our feet closer into the body. But like I said, do not put pressure on the top of your head. Really use the strength of your shoulders and forearms. And when you're ready, as you walk your legs in closer to the body, let the legs rise one by one. Now, once you start to feel shaky, which is bound to happen, just engage the core. Tighten into that center body and feel everything find a certain balance once you do this. Core work is key here. I have not graduated into handstands because it is so much about the core. So to get to that point, to get to that comfort of being inverted and of using our core, a headstand is a really nice way to do this. And once we're up here and we feel comfortable, we can just have fun with it. We can move our one foot to the front of the room, one foot to the back, create some nice dancers movements here. And when we're ready to release, I like to bring my knees into my chest and then release as slowly and as mindfully as possible, not crashing down, being always graceful, always mindful. And then we come to child's pose and we can bring our arms outstretched in front of us or down by our sides so our hands meet our feet. And they say that it's best to spend the same amount of time that you were inverted in this resting pose to balance out all the movement, all the rushing blood that's gone to your head. You don't want to get lightheaded. So we spend a few nice relaxing moments here. If we want an extra stretch in the neck, we can cup our heels, and with the crown of our head on the mat, we raise the hips. We should not feel pressure on the neck, but rather a stretch. And making sure to take a few breaths here as we come out of this inverted pose and back into our flow. Coming to all fours and then meeting in a seated position. We're going to take a few twists here. So we bend our right leg over the left, hugging that knee into the chest and opening up to the opposite side of the room, planting our hand behind us and twisting with that chest open and ready to receive, with a sensation in our hips being activated, the emotions being released, being invited in. And we take a breath from this twisted posture. Take your time here. You can switch sides whenever you're ready. Crossing the knee over to the opposite side of the hip, planting that arm behind us and stretching through the chest, looking to the back of the room. Releasing the posture, we're just going to shake out our knees a little bit. And then we're going to do double pigeon. So we start with our easy pose, basically. And then we have one of our legs rooted beneath us, parallel to our mat. And we bend into the other leg. We kind of cradle it, bringing it up to our chest. And with flexed and engaged toes, we set the ankle onto the top of the knee, rooting through the sit bones, making sure the toes are going in the same direction as the knees so as not to overextend. And then as we see appropriate for our bodies and our knees and our joints in this very day, we take a few breaths and lean forward. And we can lean forward with prayer hands. If you're more flexible in the hips, you can stretch your arms out in front of you, bringing your chest to your calves. Straightening up into the spine with our hands supported behind us. We can find a little extra strength and lengthening here. With our feet rooted onto the ground as we release from this posture, we rock our knees side to side, giving our hips a little break, a little movement. This can be a very challenging posture. It's taken me a long time just to get even this far. So be graceful with yourself. And switching sides, our shin is parallel to the mat. We cradle the opposite leg, flexing our toes, our feet, and setting the opposite foot onto the opposite knee. And I'm a little bit tighter on this side. You may notice that as well. Depends on how we sit during the day, how we cross our legs, how we stand. So we're going to try to balance this out by spending time in this posture, spending time breathing into the spots that feel extra tight. You can rest your elbows on the floor in front of you, on the calf, or just stay seated with a straight spine and arms by your side. Breathing into these tense spots, saying thank you, saying it's okay, and just being grateful for all that you can do. We release the posture. Feet on the floor, we rock our knees side to side, balancing out our hips here, balancing out the lower back after such an intense posture. And then we rock onto our back with our legs overhead. So now we come into happy baby pose. We grab our big toes and with our hips wide and our knees splayed to the side, our feet face the ceiling, and we can spend a few moments rocking in this very restorative position. If we want, we can bring our feet together for a deeper hip stretch. Really listen to your body here. What do you need? What do you crave? And feed that right now in this moment. You can grab each big toe, stretching each foot to the side, stretching open through the hips, through the feet, and always grounding your lower back to the floor, grounding your spine to the mat. So you're glued to the mat, but your legs soar high. And breathe. Breathe as you stretch open, as you make space for something new. And we'll spend a few breaths rocking here. This is a really nice little spinal massage. Rocking with our feet overhead, and then coming up to almost a seated position, pausing, and then coming into all fours, sending our legs behind us, and then coming into downward facing dog. Our right leg rises. Feel the openness you've created, and set up for swan pose. So our right knee comes to right wrist, left leg outstretched behind us. The goal is to have this front leg, the front shin parallel to the mat. This is a very challenging pose for me, so it doesn't always have to be parallel, but the goal is to keep the right ankle and the right knee in a supported position, so your calf is resting on the ground. And then we can set up for a nice stretch here, reaching to the left side of the room, bending into the left knee. Our kneecap should be like the very top of the kneecap, where that fleshy part is, should be taking the pressure when you bend into this posture. It shouldn't be on the bone itself. And opening up here and reaching forward with our hands, making space with our hips here. With a straight spine, we gracefully come down to the mat with our head on the mat below. Our hands can be outstretched or in prayer pose above our head. And we breathe. This restorative pose can be magical if it's done sometimes at the right moment when you need it the most. So if that's what you need right now, take a few extra breaths here. For those who are ready to release, you can switch sides by coming to the ball of the back foot. Hands root beneath us, stretching out the leg in downward dog, opening up the hip, bending with circles of the hip, and switching legs when you're ready. Left leg rises, left leg bends to place the left knee by the left wrist. The left ankle is close to the body or closer up towards the front of the mat. Wherever you are at is fine. And then you turn to the side of the room, opening up to that right side, bending into that back leg and pulling the foot closer to the body, glancing over the right shoulder, feeling this delicious stretch, acknowledging all that your body is capable of. Slowly releasing that leg. The toes go flat down onto the ground, and we reach our hands out in front of us, bringing our torso down to the earth, feeling the stretch in both of our hips, and just having a moment for ourselves here. A quiet, restful, restorative moment. With a deep breath in, release the posture if it's time. Hands ground beneath you. Come to the ball of the back foot, stretching into downward dog. Opening up the hip by bending that knee and making circles. We come to our knees for a wide-legged child's pose, resting our head on the floor, giving our hips a little extra tender, loving care. Feeling the newly made space in this part of the body that holds so much. And we come to our back for a supine twist, starting with the right leg. We bend the right leg into the chest, twisting to the opposite side, our hands outstretched to the side of us. Our gaze comes over the opposite leg that's twisted to the opposite side of the room. And we relax here in this engaged posture, letting our body recover letting our body move through its many phases, whether it's emotional, whether it's a physical adjustment, just letting it do its work that it does best. And we switch sides, hugging the opposite knee into the chest and twisting over the opposite body, the opposite side body. Arms go wide, and our glance is to the other side of the room. And we take a few full belly breaths, even through the twisted posture, always finding space for the breath to exist and to expand us fully. Once we're done with this posture, we slowly release, bringing both of our knees to our chest, hugging in to the midline of the body, kind of feeling that energy pulsing through us, all this energy that we just moved and created, bringing our nose to our knees. We squeeze everything in for one last moment, and we release. Our legs come to the floor, our arms wide. We can roll our head back and forth, finding that perfect position for a supported posture. Releasing even the breath here, letting the body feel the support that it always has of the earth beneath us. Corpse pose, where we let it all go. Enjoy. As we re-acknowledge our breath, start to wiggle the fingers and the toes, start to reawaken the body, the spirit, the mind, and move slowly here as we shift from corpse pose into a fetal position with our head resting on our arm outstretched above us, our knees curled into the chest. Take a few moments here. When you're ready, you can push yourself up with that top arm coming into Sukhasana, seated position. We bring our hands to our chest, and we feel the full belly breath once again, rooting us to the earth beneath us. I hope you feel better than when you started. I hope you feel re-engaged with your intention for the day and with where your body is at this very moment. Whether you're in recovery, whether you're in the middle of pushing your physical limits, whether you are just trying to get in touch with your muscles and your strength once again. Yoga is a beautiful place to do all of these things. Acknowledge where you are. And feel that life force, that pranayama flowing through you, and carry that with you through the day, through the weekend, through the month, if you can. With one hand over our heart, one hand on our stomach, we feel our breath gently moving through us, and we acknowledge that this safe place, this place that feels like home, is always attainable. It's always here. When you're not sure, take this posture, take this stance, and just connect with her, with him. They will always be there. I hope you have a magical rest of your day. I want to thank you for coming into this practice with me, for joining me from afar. As we raise our hands high above us, with our eyes still closed, we bring in the energy in this room that we have created, whether we're alone, whether we have a shared space. We scoop up the energy around, bringing it into our field, engaging with the places that we interact with every day in a more meaningful way. With our hands to our heart, we bow to the teacher within each of us. We bow to the teachers before us. Namaste.